Hey, Coach. Whether it's Moro Oshimo calling you brilliant, what you're bringing, there's been a lot of great talk as far as everything you're bringing to this.
What did he say?
He said you were brilliant, and I think I can quote him on that. But from their end, how much are they soaking up? I know you're bringing a lot to the equation. How much are they soaking up? How much are they playing and not thinking at this point?
We've thrown a lot at them over the spring ball and with 10 days into camp, and they picked it up pretty good. We're to the point now where we're just really getting these guys honing in on the details of the calls and what they got to do at their each given position, and then really trying to stress them in the heat out under the sun, and really trying to get them fatigued and having them to have to execute and function at a high level in those circumstances.
Chip Brown, go ahead.
Pete, hey, Chip Brown with Horns 24/7. Heard the defense got after the offense pretty good in this scrimmage last Saturday. What would be your three top concerns right now, or at the top of your to-do list with what's left in camp?
Just continuing getting better at tackling, our conditioning, being able to play 4 quarters in a day game out under the sun, and then keep continuing building depth. We got to keep bringing some of these younger guys along. Football's, as we all know, a physical sport, and injuries happen and guys get nicked up, and we got to have better depth behind the starting line guys, so we can keep rolling.
Brian Davis, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Unless I've missed it on your bio, it appears that you've spent almost your entire life at Boise or in the Northwest, and I just wonder what made you want to come to Texas. What do you think of this challenge, and what do you think that this program can be?
Yeah, it was just the timing was right for me and my family to. I was with Coach Pearson for 14 years, and they were awesome. I put a lot of value in who I work for and work with. I could have chased jobs over the years, and I guess go back to my statement where who I work with and work for is very important to me. As we all know, it's hard to win football games, and you want to be with good people and all in a common cause, and win, lose, or draw, right? It's about the process, and you're back at it. And so I place a lot of value in that. And, I've recruited Texas over the years, and being in the Northwest, coming out, more east, state of Texas is known for, it's big time high school football. And I just wanted a new challenge. I remember Texas back in the day. I grew up a Notre Dame fan, and I think it was, don't quote me, but I think it was like 77 or something when Notre Dame beat Texas. I became a huge Earl Campbell fan when I was young, when he played with the Houston Oilers. Saw him take Isaiah Robertson's soul on Monday Night Football, and so I've always had a curiosity. And so when Sark called, it was time to make that move.
Chuck Carlton, go ahead.
Yeah, Pete, couple of the players, Keandre Coburn, for one, was just talking about your style and practice, how you're quieter than maybe some of the defensive coaches that they've been around in the past. You're not a big yeller and screamer. How would you describe your coaching style, and where does that come from?
It's probably just my personality. I mean, when I was younger, I was a lot more vocal. As I've gotten older, matured, at the end of the day, when kids make mistakes, and I'm guilty of it, I just don't do it as much. When I raise my voice, I start yelling. It's a sign of frustration from me, right? Not getting across the information and getting them to execute like we want them to. And so they all want to do it, and The one thing that will get me fired up is, lack of effort, lack of focus. That takes zero talent. And so, guys make mistakes, coach them up. They keep making the mistakes over and over again. That's when we tend to have issues. And I guess it's more my personality and how I've grown over the years. And the whole idea is to try and build confidence in these guys and get them to play fast and physical to the best of their ability. And I guess that's just my style.
Nick Boyle, go ahead.
Yeah, Pete, this is your first off season at a new place since you took that Washington job back in 2014. So I'm curious for you, what's it been like sort of stepping out of that comfort zone, acclimating to a new region, finding a new home? Just, what has this off season been like from you, just from an individual perspective?
Yeah, I never thought I would sweat as much as I do because I have not been a big sweater, but I have now. It's been great. Like I said, the staff's been awesome. The kids are awesome. That's all what you make of it. And Austin's a great city, great university. I'm looking forward to the challenge of defending these Big 12 offenses. Yeah, it's I guess it's the challenge and who I'm working with and get to know these kids and build relationships with these guys. And it's part of the job, and I'm just doing it in a different location.
Bob, go ahead.
Hey, Pete, you talk about your style. What have you found that works at Boise and Washington so well for you? And do you change much going into the Big 12? How much have you watched that? Or is that all just way too complex and it's really pretty simple? You go tackle people and
yeah. I mean, it's technique and fundamentals of football, or pad level, great leverage, playing with good effort. And then at the end of the day, we're teachers. As coaches, we're teachers, and we're trying to teach them those fundamentals, those techniques, the alignments, the assignments they're supposed to do. And it's a process. It takes reps, and it's over and over and over. And you just stick to the same deal every day. You're out there to get better, and some of the drills get monotonous, but at the end of the day, it's all about developing those foundations that they're gonna use on any given play. No matter what the call is or what kind of defense we're playing, it still comes down to, striking, getting off of blocks, playing with good eyes, playing with good leverage, and then tackling.
Kirk Bowles, you're up.
Yeah, Pete, what are your impressions of DeMarvion Overstone so far, and who are some of the difference makers you feel you have on defense?
Yeah, so Demo is, we've been bringing him along because of his, shoulder deal to the spring. And so when he finally got out there the other day, the guy's super fast, super explosive. You can tell the way he plays. He loves football. He likes contact. And he's a very dynamic, explosive guy. Some of the other guys that are, potential difference makers, and Keandre is a load inside and very disruptive. Vernon is coming on. He's a big guy that's got really good athleticism. Some of the edge guys are coming along. Jacoby and Ray and Ovi's been a really good surprise for us. He transferred from Notre Dame. He's very twitchy and dynamic. And then back in the back end, Schooler is picking it up. He's being real vocal. BJ is coming along really good. And the guy that's probably made the most improvement is Anthony Cook. He's really come on. He's getting comfortable with the defense, knowing what he's supposed to do, playing faster, physical, and then the corner. Jameson's doing pretty good out there on the edge.
Joe Cook, you're up.
You mentioned tackling was something that you wanted to work on. What's like your philosophy with tackling, whether it be rugby or head up? How would you term it? And then how do you instruct it to get these guys drilled into it and make it show up on Saturdays?
Yeah, it's rugby style. We're gonna go near foot, near shoulder, head to the side. Trying to get the head out of the tackle. We feel it's a more effective tackle when you get in deep and you show clips of the rugby guys, how physical they are. It does not take anything away from our physicality. and it's obviously safer and it's more efficient tackle because we have better leverage. You know, a lot of times you come with your head, you tend to get across the bow of the runner, and you lose that inside out or outside in leverage, and that's when you get cut back on. So it's definitely a rugby style, and then we just break it up into different drills and different, you know, we got different phases, you know, where you got to take the air out. You got the contact phase, we go near foot, near shoulder. You know, the finish phase, you're wrapping, running your feet, taking them on the ground. There's a lot of tracking drills. We don't want to beat these guys up. And then there's a lot of, so, you know, it's put into pieces, broken down into pieces. And we just keep drilling it. A lot of decision-making drills where guys are in space, working with each other, keeping their leverage, and then either fitting them up or visualizing the fit that we want them to have.
Jeff Howe, go ahead.
Coach, I know one of the things Sark has talked about throughout the offseason when he's talked about defense is valuing the ball and wanting the ball and really putting a high priority on forcing turnovers. I guess as a defensive coordinator, how does forcing turnovers kind of become part of your culture and who you are, you know, beyond just working circuits in practice or talking about it in meetings?
So like you said, that's all part of it. And then when we're out at practice, you know, obviously we got to drill it, and then we got to emphasize it when we're pursuing the ball. Most of the fumbles that are forced we call them chase tackles. You're coming from the side or from behind, where the runner is focusing on somebody else, and the next guy is the one that's getting the ball out. And so we call it ball aware. We want to be ball aware as we're going to make the tackle. If we see the ball, it's just repetitive. We want to punch the ball or rip it out, but it's getting them first comfortable with what they're doing, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to execute. Once they can get through that learning curve, right, the game starts to slow down, and then the ball aware starts to come into play with them because they're comfortable with what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, and now they're just playing. And then as they get there, it's just a matter of getting them to be aware of it when it presents itself.
Anwar, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, it's Anwar Richardson from Orange Bloods. Coach, the top offense in the Big 12 last year averaged 43 points a game. The top defense gave up 291 yards a game. As a defensive coordinator, do you have to adjust what your definition of a success is in the Big 12 because of the high-powered offenses that they have in this conference?
Yeah, I don't know. Ask me at the end of the year. But we're trying to keep. Our goal is to hold the offense to under 20 points. That's our goal. It might be a high goal, but that's our goal, and we're either going to achieve it or not. But at the end of the day, it comes down to it is a team sport, and we're trying to hold them as few points as we can. And obviously, the offense is trying to score as many points as we can. I'm not sure on that one. Had some really successful defenses over the year, hold them under 20 points a game, but we'll see. We'll definitely see. But at the end of the day, it's like, if we have one more point than them, we got to enjoy it and be happy about it, even though we didn't play as well as we wanted to.
Got time for a couple last ones. Cedric, go ahead.
Hey, Pete, Cedric Golden of the Austin American Statesman. When you're in Washington, you face some great quarterbacks: Sam Darnold, Justin Herbert, Mariota, Josh Rosen. When you were looking at taking this job and you did your research on Big 12 offenses, what similarities did you see between those offenses and the ones you faced in the Pac-12?
Well, I guess, most offenses are spread offenses nowadays. And there's some component of the RPO where they're putting your run defenders in conflict somehow. So that's a big part of what the Big 12 does. Some of those quarterbacks were athletic, like the guys that we're going to see in the Big 12, and some of them weren't. I don't know. I can't pinpoint one thing other than I know that, the Big 12 offense has put up a lot of points, and it's going to be an awesome challenge. And you know. Sometimes bend but don't break and play really good defense in the red zone. It is, you know, better than giving up big chunk yards and big plays for touchdowns.
Two last ones. Taylor Estes up.
Hey, Coach, Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7. Going back kind of what Keandre said about you in the comments about you being a little bit more quiet. He also mentioned how Coach Choate is more of a vocal and fiery type of assistant coach. How has it been kind of working alongside of Coach Choate with you guys seemingly having a little bit different personalities, and how's the development and building that DC, co-DC type of relationship together?
Yeah, so me and Coach Choate go back a long time. We coached together at Boise State, coached together at Washington. So good friends. We know each other, and I know his strengths. He knows my strengths. I know his weakness. He knows my weakness. And so, yeah, it's like the odd couple, I guess.
Last one, Brian.
Yeah, Coach, this is Brian. I should have introduced myself earlier. Brian Davis from the Statesman. Two questions. Why do you think you guys had such success over Mike Leach's offenses at UW? And then second question, did you have anything to do with the Statue of Liberty or that ladder play for Boise State against Oklahoma?
Yeah, so our success against Washington State, I mean, it really just comes down to playing, we dropped 8 a lot, kept the ball in front of us, mixed coverages to try and confuse the quarterback. Did a really good job of getting pressure on the quarterback with 3 rushers, which a lot of that was attributed to, you know, the coverage change-ups. And we're not going to let them get chunk yards and big plays, and made them earn it. And then the offense did a great job of controlling the ball. When we did get a lead, the offense was awesome at running the ball and chewing up clock and keeping their offense on the sideline. So it was a combination of just playing really good team defense, field position, and not giving up big plays.
Yeah, Kirk Bowles from the Austin American, Coach. I'd just like to ask you about the play calling and how you and Sark handle that. Are you in the press box? And the fact you've been a head coach, what do you feel like you bring to this offense?
Sure. I would start by saying that I'm fortunate. You know, this is the third stop that Sark and I have been together. You know, we're together in Atlanta at the Falcons and together at Alabama and now here. And one of the things about working with Sark that you realize right away is that he's the best play caller in football. And I mean that. You know, I've been around a lot of really good play callers in my career, and he's got a special talent for it. So as he handles that part of the job, it's always made me feel really good that I'm working with somebody that does it at an elite level. So, you know, certainly during the week, the game planning happens. He knows exactly what I like in the run game. He knows exactly how I think the RPOs fit. He knows exactly how I think we should play the game up front situationally, whether that's short yardage or goal line or 4-minute or 2-minute or whatever those things are. You know, we have a really strong relationship in terms of how we communicate during the week. And then on game day, you know, I feel great because I'm working with a great play caller.
Dennis, you're up.
And then you're in charge of the engine that is going to help make it all work really well. What's your confidence level right now with that offensive line? What do they do extremely well? What jumps off the page when you're talking about that unit?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Dennis. And I would tell you, I know you guys alluded to my experience of being a head coach. And I would tell you, having been a head coach, I totally understand that Sark's mind is going to go in a lot of directions, you know, during the week as a head coach. It's not like just being the offensive coordinator. So certainly a lot of that during the week, I have to do everything that's part of my job to take that stuff off his plate so that he gets to Saturday with a clear mind. With the offensive line, I think if you talk about these guys, you have to start by talking about Derek, because Derek's been a very productive player here. I didn't have him in the spring, so my first chance to work with him has been this training camp, and I've really enjoyed working with him. He's got a lot of position flexibility. He can really play all 5 spots up front, which is great for me to know that, because now as we try to fit the pieces together and figure out, okay, who are going to be the top 5 guys, and then after that, okay, who's the 6th guy, who's the 7th guy, who's the 8th guy? Well, it really revolves a lot around his flexibility. You know, without that kind of flexibility, sometimes you can't always get the sixth guy in the game. Sometimes you have to just put the next center in the game, or you have to put the next guard in the game, or you have to put the next tackle in the game. But his ability to play up and down the line gives us a little bit more flexibility. We're not at the point yet where we're ready to kind of make those final decisions. We've got a little bit more time to do that, but I think we're getting closer. So I think where we are, it starts with him. And then you got to go to guys like Junior and a guy like Christian, a guy like Denzel, and a guy like Jake, who have played football here in games. They've been in the competitive environment. They've had good off seasons. They're working hard this training camp to kind of learn what I want them to do, which isn't exactly like what they've done in the past. There's some differences for sure. And then as we try to build depth, ultimately a veteran guy like Tope, a younger guy like Hayden, and then somebody who's kind of in the middle like Andre, you have 8 guys really that are competing, I think, at a pretty good level right now to ultimately decide who the starters are going to be.
Thank you.
Joe, go ahead.
With Inside Texas, how did you end up staying with Coach Sarkisian, going with him from Atlanta to Alabama? And then also, what was his pitch to you to get you to go with him from Alabama to Texas?
I made a decision when I went to the NFL. I've gotten this question a lot in terms of, hey, what do you like better? Do you like the NFL? Do you like college? And I've enjoyed them both. I really have. They're different. They're just different. But I had a really good experience in college. I had a really good experience in that league. And when he took the job at Alabama, I had kind of made a decision in my mind that if I was going to come back to college football, I wanted to be at a place where I knew we could compete at the highest level every year, and I would have a chance to coach elite players. I wanted to do that if I came back to college. And certainly at that place, you had that opportunity for sure. And then similarly, when Sark took this job at Texas and he gave me the opportunity to come, I felt the same way. I think you guys know, I've recruited a few players from this state over the last couple of years that left the state. And I knew how good the players in this state were at the high school level. So now our job is to recruit them and try to keep as many of them here as we can. So I knew if I was here, I'd have that same opportunity. And it gave me a chance to work with somebody that I really appreciate a lot on a professional level. And I really appreciate him a lot on a personal level. Sark and I have a really good relationship.
Nick Moyle, you're up.
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, Nick Moyle with the San Antonio Express News and Houston Chronicle. I'm a Rutgers grad, so I got to ask a Rutgers question. Obviously, you spent a long time there. Sorry, I lost you there.
You can't give me that kind of setup and then go dark on me. What was that?
What year
did you graduate?
2011. So I was there. We kind of overlapped. Yeah.
Yeah, overlapped.
So
you were there for half my tenure.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I know how what it looks like to win there, how difficult it is to recruit there and win. I'm curious what kind of lessons you took from your time there and, applied them to places like Alabama and Texas, where obviously, it's a little bit of a higher bar. It's a little bit easier to recruit. But, I'm curious, what you learned during all those years at Rutgers.
Yeah, I'll kind of address the last part first. I would tell you this. No matter where you go, it's never easier to recruit. You're just recruiting against different people that have similar situations to what you have. So you're always trying to, when you talk to recruits, you're always trying to explain to them why your school, your program is unique and why what you have to offer is different than those other schools. But I never felt like it was easier to recruit where I came from or easier to recruit here or tougher to recruit there. It's always felt the same. It's just you're kind of recruiting against different people. But I totally understand where you're coming from with the question. For me, I worked at Rutgers for 11 years, the first 7 as an assistant coach and then 4 as the head coach. So I really got a chance to grow up in Division I football in New Jersey. It was a unique experience for me. I grew up 1 hour from that campus. So it was really like working in your home environment, which was a lot of fun for me. It was great for my family. And I got a chance to be around Greg Schiano for 7 years. And Greg did a phenomenal job building that program. I know he's back there right now. I'm sure he'll do an excellent job there again. I don't have any doubt about that. Since then, now I've had the opportunity to go to the NFL to work with Dan Quinn, who I started with years ago at Hofstra, and Dan and I have a good relationship. And that was great to kind of see him in that role in the NFL and work within that league because I hadn't done that. And then to have a chance to go to Alabama and work for Coach Saban and really see the person who's done it better than anybody else in the history of college football. I don't know that anybody's ever done it better than him. So the opportunity to kind of see how he does it, all of those experiences ultimately make up who you are as a coach. I think everybody in this profession, probably any profession, is really a product of their experiences. So I've been fortunate. You get to this level, if you get to do this at a high level, it's usually because you've been exposed to some people who do it really well and you've been able to learn from them. And I'm no different in that respect for sure.
Chris Tavares, go ahead.
Kyle, Chris Tavares with KXAN News, the NBC station here. You talked about why you followed Sark and your relationship with him, but everything that you were looking for, you still had in Alabama. You were at a winner. You were coaching and recruiting elite players. What was the decision? What was the leap of faith that you made in choosing to leave a good thing and come to something a bit of an unknown and starting something up again at UT?
I think that starts with my belief in Steve. I think there's no question. It's my belief in him as a person and as a coach. And that is in no way is a negative on where I came from. That's not what this is about. I had the opportunity to come here and be the offensive coordinator. That was a challenge that I really wanted in my career. It was one of the things in my career that I had not kind of taken up yet. And I said, okay, well, let me go there and let me do that job as well. That'll be a great experience for me going forward. But first and foremost, I want to stress this. It was about my belief in him and my relationship with him, because in this profession, I don't think you can ever devalue that. I think that's really important. And that's not a negative about the other place at all, because I was very happy there. And hey, had things worked out differently and there wasn't an opportunity for me to come here, I would have been happy there. But I just felt like this was a different challenge for me and a great opportunity for me to continue to work with somebody that I had a lot of respect for.
Anwar Richardson, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, it's Arnold Richardson from Orange Bloods. Last season, you had a chance to work with, guys like Alex Leatherwood, Deontay Brown, Landon Dickerson, Evan Neal. I'm curious, how does this offensive line compare to some of those really good offensive lines that you had at Bama?
I'm going to leave. I've said this for years now. I'm not really in the comparison business. I'll leave that to you guys. We'll find that out as the year goes on. We'll see how we stack up. That certainly was an elite group. They played at a high level the entire year. The group the year before was an elite group when we still had Jed. It's good. Really, 4 of those guys were returning starters. So that was also a unique year because we had so many returning starters, seniors. To have 3 seniors on the same line was unique. It doesn't happen a lot anymore in college football when you have really great players. A lot of times they leave early. But I will tell you this about this group. I'm really happy with how they've taken to the coaching. I'm very pleased. They really have tried to do what I'm asking them to do. Now, we're only about a week and a half into training camp, so we're not there yet. But I wouldn't expect us to be there yet at this point either. But the fact that they're working and they're buying in, that tells me that we should continue to get better. And I will tell you that any of the really good offensive lines that I've had an opportunity to coach, and I've been fortunate to have a couple, they always get better as the year goes on. They continue to get better. So I expect this group to do the same thing.
Bob, go ahead.
Hey, Kyle, Bob Ballou with CBS Austin. Welcome. Good to get a chance to talk to you. You spent your whole career in the Northeast. How different was it when you moved south, and in your experience, just what are some of the biggest differences?
Yeah, the whole career is a little bit of an exaggeration now, because I've kind of working my way south and west. I went to Atlanta, and then I went to Tuscaloosa, and now here to Austin. Give me that last part of that question one more time. I apologize.
No. I was just, because you spent so much of your career up there as you've moved south. What are the biggest differences? In your experience? What do you notice are the biggest differences as you move down this way?
Yeah, I think that the college football experience in the South is a very different experience than the college football experience in the North. A lot of times in the North, and I'll take the school that I came from. Rutgers is in New Jersey, and within 90 minutes of that university, you've got 3 NFL football teams, 3 Major League basketball teams, 3 Major League baseball teams, 3 NBA basketball teams. You got 4 hockey teams, NHL hockey team. So a lot of the towns in the North tend to be kind of pro sports towns. Whereas when you go to where I came from, or you come to Austin, this is the show in town. And I think that creates a little bit of a different environment for the players, and I think for the families too. For us as coaches, I don't know that it's really very different, because we get up early in the morning, we come to the office, we work in kind of a bubble. We go to practice, we come back, we watch practice, we go home, after everybody else has already gone home. So it's a little different for us, but I think for the players and for the families, for sure, it's a much different experience in the South coaching football in a positive
Danny.
way, for sure.
Danny, go ahead.
Danny Davis with the Austin American Statesman. Kyle, I'm kind of wondering, philosophy-wise, are you big into cross-training your linemen, or would you prefer the tackles to be tackles, the guards to be guards, centers to be centers?
Yeah, in a perfect world, if you could, and I think if you ask any offensive line coach, they would tell you this. In a perfect world, you would have 5 starters. They would never switch positions. You could just train them in one spot. You build that chemistry. But ultimately, to me, you have to be able to get the best 5 players on the field. So not every player is cross-trainable. I will tell you that. They don't all take well to it. So you have to find the players within your room that you can plug into a couple different spots. You know, and I'll give you an example of a young guy right now, Hayden Connor, who's done a really nice job playing guard and tackle as a young player. And we're playing him in both spots. And I've told him a number of times, listen, I know this isn't easy for you, but this is what's going to help you get on the field the fastest and help us win football games. So we're playing him in both spots. I don't know where ultimately he's going to end up. He's doing a really nice job right now. And mentally, he's handling it really well. So I've been very pleased with that. And kind of already talked about Kirkstetter, who's on the other end of the spectrum from an experience standpoint, who does the same thing for us. And those guys are always valuable to you as a coach. In a perfect world, you would love to never have to do it, but it usually ends up that you have to have a couple guys who can do it.
Chip, go ahead.
Kyle,
you got
Chip Brown with Horns 24/7. What would you say are your top 3 concerns right now at this point in camp?
I don't really live in a world of concerns. I don't coach like that. I see it this way. You know, we are pushing these players every day to get better. They are taking to the coaching. It doesn't mean they're perfect. They're not perfect. It doesn't mean we don't have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. But that's what training camp is for. If they could just show up here day one and we could play at the highest level and be ready for a game, then we wouldn't need training camp. You know, so we need training camp. Now, if you change the word concern to priority, I think the priority would be, hey, ultimately we got to figure out who are the best 5 guys, and then who's 6, who's 7, who's 8. So that's going to be a priority. And who knows if it'll be a distinctive 6, 7, 8. You don't know that sometimes because, like I said before, not everybody is got the adaptability to play multiple positions. So sometimes you need a second center, you need a third guard, and sometimes you need a third tackle. Other times you can have one guy that you can plug in to multiple spots and he becomes your 6th man. So it's not a concern. You know, we'll work through that. That's part of what we do as coaches, but that's the priority, in my opinion, as we get closer and closer to game week.
Got time for a few last ones for Coach. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Jeff Al with Horns 24/7. I was just wondering from a recruiting standpoint, you know, when you and Sark sit down and talk about the kind of, you know, body types or skills that you're looking for, where does that process start in terms of, I guess, you determine, okay, we want to be a wide zone team or a gap team and find those body types, or are you just looking strictly at film? Well, I guess what all kind of goes into your process of identifying guys who can play offensive line for you?
Yeah, I love that question. And I will tell you this, like, certainly it's no secret that we like big humans, you know, and I would tell you that just because they're big doesn't mean they can't run wide zone, because in this system, we do it all. It's one of the strengths of this system is within the system, whether it's inside zone, outside zone, gap schemes, pin pull schemes, it's all here. It's all on tape from the last couple of years. And I think the recruits see that. We had a young man who played for us named Deontay Brown last year, who was about 6'4", 350 pounds. Now, he'd weigh in at 350, but sometimes I thought he might have been paying off the guy with the scale. He might have been a little bigger than that. But as I talked to the NFL people last year, I told them, I said, listen, this guy could run outside zone. Just put the film on. So you're going to look at his body type and you're going to say, nah, he's a gap scheme guy. He's a bigger, thicker guy. And you're right. He can do that. But if you think that he can't do the outside zone stuff, you're going to miss out on a really good player. So part of his body type for sure. But as we look at the players, we want complete players because the system is complete. And we don't want to ever have to play a player that's going to hinder us in terms of what we want to do play call wise. Because against certain defenses, you'd rather be a zone team. Against other defenses, you'd rather be a gap team. Some weeks we run a lot of pin pull, some weeks we don't. So it's all available to us, and we need players really that can do it all.
Cedric, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman. It was always difficult to play offensive line in the last 20, so much on their plate. How has the RPO changed the game for these guys and made it even more difficult to maintain what they've already got to put on their plate?
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying you've got the most comfortable chair in the entire Zoom right now, Cedric. So you win. You have won the Zoom today for sure. You can't put your thumb up here at a UT press conference. We don't do that. You got to go like this. No,
Who?
All right. So hey, to answer your question, the RPOs. Well, in the old days, you'd have a run play, and there are some runs that you call and run. They're protected 2-back runs. You got a fullback or a second tight end. They're protected runs. You can call them. You can run them. You don't have to check them. Whatever. That's a small percentage of the run game, and then you have what are called adjusted runs. So these are the runs that you have to protect. And in the old days, you protected those runs by saying, okay, if we get this look, or if there's this many people in the box, you run the run. But if not, we're going to check it to a pass. So if we don't like it, we're going to check it to a pass, or we're going to run the ball to the right. But if they got all the defenders over there to the right, we got to check the play and we got to run the ball to the left. So that was kind of the way I was brought up in football. But now with RPOs, there's still some of that in football. Don't get me wrong. There's still some of that exists within the game. But now you have the RPOs where it's like, okay, hey, we're going to run this run. This defender is the problem. Well, if that guy's a problem, we'll throw the ball in behind him and then let them deal with the one-on-one in space. And that's part of the magic, I think, of the system. Because when people say, hey, what is the offense? We're a pro style offense. We're a run play action offense. But the biggest difference is we utilize the RPOs, I think, in a way that in the NFL, for whatever reason, they haven't gotten to that point yet.
Time for one last one. Kirk, go ahead.
Yeah, Kyle, I was curious about some personal stuff with you. Are you a hockey guy? Are you a pizza guy? Are you a golfer? And do you want to be a head coach again someday?
Well, first of all, my complete focus right now is on being here as the offensive coordinator, helping Sark kind of get this program back to a place that it really deserves to be, for sure. Now, I did grow up in the Northeast. So if you're asking me if I'm a pizza guy, I'm absolutely a pizza guy. There's no doubt. Love Italian food. My mother was Italian, so every Sunday we would have the big, kind of family Italian meal. So from where I come from, there's no question that's where I trend to. When I visit back in the Northeast, I trend back maybe to some of those Italian restaurants. Although I will say this, I found a couple in Austin that I really like.
Jeff Banks, Chip Brown, Horns 24/7. I guess, just how things have looked at the tight end position. What are the priorities? And then on special teams, who's stood out to you?
Yeah. I would answer your first question. I would say tight end position, I think, is a combination of veterans and rookies. Obviously, really five really frontline guys that we've been working with and evaluating. I think Cade Brewer is a phenomenal leader. Very, very good H-back, can kind of do it all, especially off the ball in the insert running game and also in the passing game. But, he's just a competitor. He's a winner. Definitely the kind of guy you like to coach. Very football smart, high football IQ, comes from Lake Travis. So kind of what I expected and been a very, very lived up to his billing. Jared Wiley, probably the most improved player so far since we've been here. We're a 2 tight end based offense. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 30-40% of our snaps last year at Alabama were 2 tight ends. We were hoping to inherit a talented group like we did, and we did. And so Jared has been kind of that big Y inline attached tight end. He's obviously a very talented athlete at 6'5", 6'7", 250 pounds, but he's really made his mark blocking this fall, and that's been what we needed him to do. So I think as far as setting the edge in the run game and being able to add that physical element with the offensive line and Coach Flood blocking schemes, I feel like Jared's really turned the corner, both from a maturity standpoint and just a physicality standpoint. So with those two, they definitely lead our room. They definitely lead the way. And then I'm really super excited about, Gunnar Helm. He came in mid-year, early enrollee, and he has done nothing but impress us with his knowledge. He picked the offense up right away. He's starting to show signs of physicality, but he's always been a very talented pass receiver. So I think he for a he doesn't play like a freshman. You don't even think he's a freshman because he has all the answers right on the test. When you're quizzing him, when you're asking him what the calls are, the line calls or what route adjustments, he's able to tell you right off the bat like he's a sophomore or junior in this offense. So that's pretty impressive. And then two very talented young players in JT Sanders and Juan Davis. Probably just got to continue to push them, right? I mean, it is what it is in college football. The tight end position is going to be used a lot in the run game, and it's going to be physical, and there's going to be bumps and bruises. So we're going to need those two to come on. I think super bright future for JT Sanders, who obviously played defensive end and tight end at Denton Ryan, and now comes to us, and we've kind of just focused him sitting there at tight end and really seen his development. He's had his best last two practices. You know, he's played his best the last two practices. And then one, a talented pass receiver who's never played tight end. So he's just getting more and more comfortable being a tight end as opposed to maybe a quarterback like he was in high school or a receiver. And he doesn't shy away from contact. It's just getting used to taking on defenders and things like that. So I am super pleased with having 5 tight ends. And then on special teams, I think, you know, I was just super impressed with Cameron Dicker this offseason. In the spring, he had a very, very good outing in those 15 practices. And so, you know, he's kind of followed it up, right? I mean, spring's one thing, coming into fall camp's another. He's done both the punting and the kicking off. We're not worried about who plays what or how many teams he's on or how many things he's doing, but we certainly are going to limit the amount of reps day in and day out. We're going to try to be on like a 4-day-a-week schedule with Cam because he's punting and kicking off, that we don't wear him out. And then all of a sudden we get to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th game and he's not kicking the ball off as deep and his leg starts to get a little bit weary. So we've talked a lot about his full big picture season, what that looks like on a rep basis and on a day-to-day basis. Isaac Pearson has been a very, very pleasant surprise at punter as a freshman, and Ryan Buchesky is just kind of working himself back in it. And then kicking wise, we had a walk on in Bert Auburn who's come in and done a very nice job as a backup. So I've been pleased with the specialists that way. Guys that stood out to me, some of our veteran players, obviously like Josh Thompson and obviously, you know, DJ, Deshaun Jameson, he's been very impressive. There's just been some new scheme things, just trying to get them acclimated and adapted to what we're trying to do from spring to fall and then going into game plan for the first game. So some of the freshmen, Ishmael Ibrahim, Maurice Blackwell, they've really stood out on some of the look teams and have earned their way, at least in the conversation of the 3 deep for our first game. But I think what you'll see is development, right? I mean, that's the key, right? We can't have every starter on offense and defense starting on 4 phases of special teams, or we'll run everybody down. So we're looking and continuing to evaluate. This scrimmage coming up on Saturday will be big. I think what we did is with Josh Moore and Xavier Worthy, we've added, right, like a speed element to the return game with those 2 receivers. And I think with DJ, that gives you 3 really, really talented punt returners back there as opposed to 1. And then in the kick return game, the addition of Keelan Robinson, and then obviously you have Bijan if you need to use him. Deshaun's very well accomplished there as well. So I just kind of like where we're at with the return game. We've got plenty of body types. We got plenty of different speeds, and I think we got some guys that have some home run speed in them. So those are the most talented people so far that have stuck out to me.
Taylor, go ahead.
Coach Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7. You've obviously had a lengthy career coaching in the state of Texas, both at UTEP and then Texas A&M prior to coming back here. What about this opportunity made it the right time to come back to the state of Texas and start coaching here?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, there's kind of 3 parts to that answer. Number one, I felt like we had a lot of things to accomplish this last season at the University of Alabama. It was my 3rd season being there. We wanted to attain our goals to win the national championship. I think being able to do that really helped me just feel like we kind of got a goal accomplished that we were all striving for. You know, we lost the national championship 3 years ago to Clemson. We lost to Auburn and LSU the next season, didn't get there, and then we won it last season. My relationship with Sark over the past 2 years during that time we grew very close. I think we share some of the same ideals, right? I mean, in terms of attacking defenses, attacking other special team units, just the aggressive nature of our play calling and how we like to operate. I think we just kind of saw eye to eye ever since we met each other. So there's a lot of commonalities there. And for me, it's always been about who I work for and making sure that I believe in who I work for and having the ability for that person to let me bring the best I can to the table, both schemes and individual fundamental teaching. So we just, really shared the same ideal. So I think number one, being able to accomplish what we did at Alabama made me feel better about maybe possibly moving on. Number two, the relationship with Sark. And then my kids still live in College Station with their mom. And that was a huge part of it also. Just the ability to come and be an everyday part of their lives as they're going into high school. That was the other major reason. When it was Texas, that's really the part that separated me. I've had other job offers in the past, but when it was the University of Texas, that's really the one that made it okay to sign on the dotted line and come here. And what I mean by that is just being at A&M, being at Alabama, having recruited the state at UTEP for the past 15 years and knowing the talent level, I've always looked at this job or admired it in terms of the ability to acquire talent and coach Texas players that obviously, in my opinion, these coaches do as good a job as anybody in the country. So I just looked at it as what a sleeping giant, what a time to be part of it. Certainly we felt like, with Sark taking that job and him offering me a job, I felt like it was the perfect combination of the three things that I was looking for.
Cole Thompson, you're up.
Hey, Jeff, Cole Thompson, longhornscountry.com. I just want to get your thoughts on DJ and what you saw from him going into this season. You worked at Alabama with guys like Jalen Waddle. And what are some things that you probably are trying to teach him and maybe Joshua Moore as well for the return game that maybe they didn't show last season underneath the former special teams coordinator?
Sure. Yeah. See, so what I did is I came in and I watched the film and I critiqued, obviously being critical when I first got the job of everything that I was going to be in charge of from the previous year. And then just kind of looked at, hey, what do I got to do? How can we upgrade the situation both schematically and fundamentally? And the first thing that stood out was, watching the Oklahoma game and seeing, the ball drop in front of him a few times, maybe him catching outside the framework of his body. And so immediately that's what DJ and I went to work on. It's not just me saying this is what you got to do. It's us being down in there together, catching jugs every day after practice and getting himself in a position to be a great technical returner. And it's like I told him, I said, hey, look, you're not a 6'5", 6'3" corner. You're a great player. Obviously, you have great instincts on defense, but you're going to need this part of the game to have an opportunity not only to make our team better, which you've done in the past, but also have a chance at the NFL. And so I said, what do you want to do? You want to do it now or you want to wait till later? Because it could cost us a game if we're not fielding every punt the way we should, if we're not securing the ball and those things. So I think punt return wise with DJ, me and him have really honed in on how we're going to catch the ball every time. We have a plan. I think he's starting to get a feel for the play calling and when we want to go to the field, when we want to hit it up inside, all those things. And he's just a likable, coachable player. So, I jumped on him pretty good a couple weeks ago, and he responded great. There isn't a lot of time. It's here. We're 2 weeks away. We don't have time to say, well, later on, a couple days I'll get the judgment sheet. No. So every day we punt and punt return, we go out after, and I'm working individually with him on his punt return stuff and his fielding. I think Josh Moore's just a natural, he's a natural vertical threat. Once he catches the ball, he just naturally can stick his foot in the ground. I think him just getting back there in front of people with guys running down at him has been the biggest thing for him. But I think he does catch the ball well. And then you add, obviously, Xavier Worthy, who's a newer player for us. He is super assertive. He is like a junior football IQ-wise as opposed to a freshman. And he's very intent and urgent about everything he does. And so you always like a freshman that can do that because, hey, when you're back there in a punt return situation, that ball goes a lot of places, especially with all these different roll punt schemes and rugby punt schemes. You're going to have to make some decisions. You're going to have to get people away from the ball. There's going to be balls that you need to field. There's going to be balls that you don't need to field. So he shows the football IQ and assertiveness that you need. I think with those three guys, and along with, we got some other guys. Schooler, I think Brendan's done a great job on core phase, special team guy, but he's also returned some a little bit in camp. We got a nice group to choose from. But I think DJ is going to have a great season because I think he's putting the work in, and I think he gets it now. Like, it isn't just about being back there and catching the ball. It's how I catch the ball, and it's where the return's going, and it's how to set those things up.
Sam, go ahead.
Hey, Jeff, Sam Conn from The Athletic. You've been around a lot of good offensive coaches over the years. I'm curious, from your time with Sark, what distinguishes him as an offensive coach, whether it's game planning, play calling, his ideas? What is it that stands out in your opinion about Sark?
He brings it every day. You know, a lot of people are always going to go back and look at the schemes, and they're going to say, man, look at Devontae Smith. He was so wide open. Look at Jalen Waddle. He's so wide open. Look at Mac Jones. He threw it right on the money. He's to be credited for all that. Okay. Don't get me wrong. But the thing that's most different about him than every other special team coordinator is he brings it every day with his energy, his attitude, and how he coaches the players. And whether it's when we were at Alabama, he was just a coordinator, or now that he's the head coach and the coordinator, he's done a phenomenal job with the balance of it, but he's still coaching the same exact way. And his, if you will, quest like for perfection on every play, that's how he operates. And he can see it from both sides of his peripheral. It's like he can see the tight end over here was supposed to take a lateral play side step to a 9 technique, but he also knows the bubble was a little bit short on his footwork on the slot receiver to the right. I mean, I haven't been around a lot of guys that can just do all of that on one play and then fix it, coach it, be aggressive. He has no ego. And you know what else? He has no memory. He doesn't, when he gets on a guy or he coaches him aggressively, he doesn't it's not personal. He doesn't keep going after the guy. He just fixes the problem and he does it immediately. And I think everyone feels an urgency to be great as opposed to just, well, I mean, what's he mad about? We just scored 4 straight touchdowns. It's like, no, you didn't run the route right. It's man, you're supposed to stair step and separate. When we start playing the really good teams, that's what's going to happen. That guy's going to cover you. So his day-to-day is unbelievable. I mean, his day-to-day energy, consistency, and just how aggressive he is in terms of wanting to make it perfect. It's unbelievable. So that's, to me, what separates it.
Anwar, go ahead.
Coach, it's Anwar Richardson from Orange Bloods. Coach, how do you determine, the guys that you place on special teams, which guys that you're going to take that maybe are starters at other positions versus some people, young people that you want to kind of get on the field as well? How do you determine who's going to be on, all your units? Factor in, you don't want to wear guys out, but factor in, you want to get guys some on the field experience.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a long answer, but I'll say this in summary of it. Number one, we're going to play the best, right? So doesn't matter if you're a starter on defense, offense, whatever. When I first got here in spring, we looked at, who's the best guys for the job. So we do some evaluation drills and coverage. We do some evaluation one-on-one drills and return and how to block for the return game. And then we kind of piece our 3 deep, right, if you will, in the spring. As we did that, we saw, hey, we thought this guy might have been a tackle, but he's really a guard on kick return. Hey, this guy should have been a front side cover guy on kickoff. Well, really, he's a backside guy. So we got a good feel for the nucleus of this team, 75, 80 players, what they could do, right? Mind you, not one time yet have I said whether they're starting on defense or offense. It's just literally what's on the film and how they play, the effort, the technique, and the athletic ability to put it all together. So that's the first part. The second part is coming to fall camp. Now we got 20 new bodies, whether it's injured vets that are off IR or freshman rookies. And now we've got to put them through the same set of drills immediately. And in right now we're in practice 11, 12. When we get to 14 days, through 14 days, we've got to figure out exactly who that nucleus is of younger players that can be added to the lineup, right? So now you look at it after 2 weeks and you go, all right, DeMarvion Overshown is obviously a really good defensive player. He's probably going to be starting on defense a lot or playing a ton of snaps. We only want to probably put him on 2. So now I'm going to say, what are the 2 most important ones for him and for this team? Because he needs to be in an impact position. So if you're a big time elite offensive or defensive player in our eyes, all right, we're going to probably just get you on 2 of them. And we're going to find out things that you can impact the game, right? Returner, coverage guy right at the apex of the coverage, maybe a protector if you're a tight end or a D lineman, maybe a block guy, right? Maybe a field goal or punt block guy. So that's how we look at that. Then you have your elite players. They're on 2. Then you have another group who I would call like your core players. who are now, hey, some of them start on defense and offense, but maybe their role isn't like the number one guy on offense and defense, or maybe a guy getting called upon to play 80 snaps. Maybe he's a 40 snap guy. Well, now I'm going to use that guy like on 3 or 4, right? And I'd use a good example be Roshan Johnson. He probably can start in a lot of backfields around the country, right? For us, he's an unbelievable special teams player. But at the same time, he's maybe really good at 3, and the other one he's maybe not so good at. So why wear him out, right? Move him down on the one he's not as good at, keep him up on the other ones. And then it's a blend of those core players, Brendan Schooler, Bug, like Jaron Thompson, obviously Keaton Crawford, and then, those type of players on the team. Then you have the freshmen. Now, what you're trying to do with them is in the next 14 days after the first 2 weeks, you're trying to put them in position where they're behind vets that they can start to move up through their development, and you can start putting them in the game. And we don't choose what game. We don't say, oh, we're playing this team, we're expecting to play the freshmen. Oh, and it doesn't work like that. It's just getting them developed in practice in the 2 deep. So they're getting reps, their skill development is enhancing. And then, hey, when it comes time that someone gets injured or that it's their time, they're being dominant in practice instead of just being okay, then we'll assert them into the lineup and go. But at no point in this season are we going to sacrifice playing our best players in this phase, because Sark just believes in that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here and I took this job.
Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, Chuck Carlton, Dallas Morning News. Just wanted to revisit Cameron Dicker and the kicking situation. You talked about monitoring him physically if he's handling all 3 of those. I was also wondering, does it take a special mental makeup to be able to handle place kicking, punting, and also the kickoffs in this day and age?
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, it does. It does. And I'm gonna be honest about it. Cam's a competitor. Cam's got a nice he's got a nice disposition. He's kind of an easygoing guy. And I'm a little more intense than that as a coach. So I think it's a nice mix between me and him, because he knows when he needs to be serious and he knows when he can be a little bit lax. And when I say lax, I don't mean not work hard. I just mean not put pressure on himself. So yes, the mental makeup is critical, but more importantly, it's the physical swing, right? I mean, one skips down the field and goes straight ahead, and the other one, we're going directional and he's coming across his body. So there's a technical aspect here that we do not want to mesh the 2 worlds of field goal kicking and punting together, because if we do, we're going to be probably not as accurate. And so he's been able to handle it better than any guy I've worked with in the last 21 years. Now, the key to the drill will be, if he has a bad punt, if he has a bad field goal, the mental makeup of coming back from it. And then the discipline to only kick and punt 4 days a week out of a 6-day work week with Sundays off, and still keep his sharpness, right, without having to overkick and overtrain. And so that part is on me to make sure that he doesn't overkick. That part's on him to be mature and realize, hey, I didn't kick as well today on a Tuesday, but I'll get it back on Thursday and I'll get myself ready to play.
Got time for a couple last ones. Danny, go ahead.
Hey, Jeff, Danny Davis of the Austin American Statesman. Would you say right now, depth-wise, that you're happy with the spot that those 3 freshmen are at, or do they kind of need to grow up still a little bit before the season opener?
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm extremely happy with the depth. I'm extremely happy. We've got speed. We've got good team speed. We've got a lot of DBs, wide receivers, and running backs. We've got some great core players. So just speaking overall, and not to be general, to be matter of fact, we've got great depth on teams. The problem becomes when injuries strike. And then how do you, that ebb and flow, right? So I'm never happy with where the freshmen are right now. They got to keep coming. We ain't got time to worry about that. You are now working with us and not the look team. You got to go. Your development, your skill development. Terry Joseph's out here after a walkthrough just working with Ismail Ibrahim. I mean, everybody in the organization understands how important it's going to be down the road, and we don't get to choose what game it's going to be. So we got to get them ready right now as if they're going to play against Lafayette, because hey, if they're the best guy, they're going in. If their guy in front of them gets hurt, they're going in. I'm happy with the freshman group. I'm happy for different reasons. Some of these guys have length. Some of these guys are aggressive. Individually speaking, I think they want to play. I think they're in here like competing, and that's why they've been moved up. But we'll see. We still got another like real week and a half of prep of training camp to get the rest of our schemes in. And then as we start to hone in on our first opponent, I'll know a little bit more about their mental makeup.
Jeff Howe, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Jeff Howe with Horns 24/7. I know holder and snapper aren't positions we usually talk about. You just don't think about it until something bad happens. But
That's right.
what kind of guy do you prefer to have be your holder? Some coaches like a skill guy. Some want it to be the backup quarterback. Who do you like as your holder? And then what is a snapping situation like? You didn't have Justin for the spring with him coming off that shoulder
Yeah, that's
surgery.
right. So snappy one's easy answer, right? Justin Matter's phenomenal. Did an unbelievable job in training camp so far. Edwards has been very consistent. We are lucky. We have two guys that can go into the season and can snap at this level and do very, very well. So that one's easy. We got two solid guys, super mature. Justin has a little more zip than Zach, but I like them both. Okay, so we're solid there. Now at the holding position, quite honestly, with Cam being a vet, the first thing I did was ask Cam, who do you like? Why? Tell me what the reasons are. All right. And then, you know, I don't have necessarily a preference. Hey, look, I would love Tua held for us, Mac Jones held for us. I would love for it to be the quarterback. I mean, he's in there touching the ball most of the time. And if he's a backup, he's paying attention to the game. His mind's in it. I love that. But usually punters are pretty good. And the reason being, they're always with the kickers working in the other fields and getting ready for practice. So to me, quarterbacks and punters are the nucleus of guys we usually use. I think both punters can hold very well. And I think our quarterbacks both do a great job. So Hudson in camp and Ryan Buchevsky and Isaac have all been holding, and they've all been really good. And thankfully, we've had no issues that way. But a lot of it, to be honest, is because Modern Edwards put it right on.
Last one, Kirk, you're up.
Yeah, Jeff, Kirk Bowles from the Austin American Statesman. All coaches give lip service to special teams, but I don't know if it's just your passion or not, but y'all seem to have an urgency about that. And do y'all kind of look at special teams as a way to alter the game even more offensively and aggressively than some other programs?
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. I mean, kind of always been in my nature to do that. And I've always had head coaches that I've been fortunate enough that have given me and our staff the freedom. What's crazy, Kirk, is that this staff is unbelievable deep with special team guys. And Blake Gideon and Jeff Choate, a young guy and an older guy that are just phenomenal. Have had my respect. I've known Jeff Choate for 20 years, and I've went against Blake Gideon the last year at Ole Miss, but I have nothing but respect for them. And now that they're working with me and I'm working with them, I'm lucky to have two other coordinators coaching half our units. Terry Joseph and I are together at A&M, so now that makes three of us. So Stan Drayton and Dre. Dre's got the returner. Stan works with half of our units as well, who's obviously he's an unbelievable professional coach. I mean, this is a dream come true for me. I'm out there telling them philosophy. I'm out there telling the players why, not just what. They're out there coaching their butt off on technique. I actually try to stay out of the way when they're coaching the technique. I'm just driving the tempo of the drills and the tempo of how we want to play, which is fast. So, hey, look, no matter what job you take, no matter where you're at, right, you're going to have to find ways to win tight games. At the end of the day, we can all look at last season, no matter where we were at, even though we won all the games we won in Alabama, right? It wasn't always that way the 2 years previous. Special teams is going to dictate the outcome of the game at some point. And whether it's average drive start or a game-breaking type play like a return for a touchdown or a block punt can totally change the outcome of the game. And we want to make sure that it's changed in our favor at Texas, at the University of Texas. And I think we're on our way with great depth. I think I'm lucky and we're lucky and our players are lucky to have three former special teams coordinators running this thing, because it's a group effort. And then having a guy like Sark that's willing to say, let's do it. Yeah, let's go block this punt. Yeah, let's double three guys and run, an exotic return. And so, I've got passion, but I've also got the right people with us and with me, and we're fired up to kind of see what you work all this time and you think you're pretty good. And Sark said it the other day. He goes, I don't know how you do it. Like, you're not going against, in offensive defense, the ones will go against the twos. Sometimes the ones will go against the ones. So you kind of have a pretty good feel like, hey, the defense is playing pretty good, the offense. But on special teams, you're always going against the look team, right? So he goes, I don't know how you do this, man. I'm back here as a head coach watching this, and I'm like, how do we know if we're going to be any good? I said, exactly. I said, wait till that first game. We're going to know all our strengths. We're going to know all our weaknesses. And then, to be honest, that adage is true. You make up the most ground after the first or second game once we see what guys do when the lights come on, as opposed to maybe just, scrimmages. We try to emulate it. And tonight we got fan appreciation night. We'll see how kids react. We play Saturday. We have another scrimmage. But you can never put 100,000 people in a stadium in practice. So it's going to be our first game when we really know if we made an impact in training camp.